Hey guys, Rob Baynard here, Creative Director at LiveX, and today I'm going to be talking about Facebook Live native features with Anthony Lazzaro at Wowza during our Wowza studio sessions here on the floor at NAB Show. We wanted to take a moment out to just talk about some of the features that are available to broadcasters in the Facebook Live API. And a lot of these features are things that a lot of people aren't aware of if they're just used to putting a stream up, and especially if they're not quite comfortable on how to sell sponsorship opportunities and advertising to generate an ROI, which is really like a magic unicorn of Facebook Live right now. Of like, people are really trying to figure out the revenue model for it, and like all the tools are coming out from Facebook. So we wanted to take a few minutes to just talk about them.
Definitely.
Yeah, welcome, Anthony.
Thanks. We're at NAB, and everyone here knows about streaming and broadcasting, but Facebook is a behemoth of features and capabilities. And as a streaming engineer or a producer, you don't necessarily know what's there, and there's a lot of great native features to take advantage of and get your broadcast to get better views, monetization, all sorts of stuff. So excited to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing we kind of want to talk about is what everyone already knows about before you dig deep into the feature set of Facebook Live is native advertising inside of your live show. So that's one opportunity that somebody can use. That is not a Facebook feature, right?
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
Yeah, that is something that you bring to the platform, and it's done very successfully. I know we had Cheddar on earlier in the week, and they have Dunkin' Donuts coffee cups on the desk and HP laptops, and all of that. It helps them generate revenue and stay, and continue to produce content. But there are other things as well. We've seen sponsorship opportunities with branded tagging, and you wanted to talk a little bit about that, the handshake process that maybe a lot of people don't know when creating a live video is there.
Yeah, this is kind of a little bit of a hidden gem for identifying a sponsor, getting Facebook to recognize that you have a sponsor for the show. Viewers can recognize that, and then your sponsor feels good about that because it's known on Facebook, and it even alerts the sponsor's audience too. So the branded content tagging is a setting in Facebook that you could turn on or off, and it's really easy to apply to a broadcast. There's a handshake icon. It's only available for pages, but
right.
Using the handshake icon, you can tag a page. And a great example of this is, I was watching a show last week, the NBA on TNT.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a weekly show, and it's sponsored by a large wireless carrier. And you just see that in the show when you're watching it. And it's a way to get a recurring episodic content and sponsorships. I've seen this also in the news space, local news programs doing special Facebook dedicated broadcasts, like a lunch hour special.
Yeah.
And being able to get a local sponsor to get that brand.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I never would have thought about it in like a local sponsorship opportunity, but that makes sense. I used it with SB Nation for a show that is called Wake Up College Football. It was sponsored by JCPenney, and we did the handshake, and it was a pretty. The best part about it is that when you do the handshake, it's not in the user's face, like in the viewer's face.
Yep.
It's very subtle, but it still allows that brand to get their sponsorship opportunity.
And it complements the native advertising that you're likely to have throughout the show,
right,
with that sponsor. And so a lot of people kind of complain, oh, I can't have pre-rolls on Facebook for my live, or and they don't understand how to monetize it. But there are ways, like we just talked about, doing that type of branded content tagging for an event you're running all weekend, or for an episodic kind of series for live. Doing native plus the branded content tagging can get you there.
Yeah, they definitely work hand in hand. And there's also recently Facebook, especially in their watch platform, but also in live, they introduced ads that kick in after a minute of view time. And a lot of people are still trying to figure out that revenue model. But let's move on and talk about live cross-posting, because that fits hand in hand with the sponsorship. So instead of maybe you're working in conjunction with another media brand that wants to have wants to have your show on their Facebook page as well. In the past, we would have to use multiple encoders, but now Facebook has made that a lot easier, right?
Yes, exactly. So it's been around for VOD as VOD cross-posting, but again, like live event producers don't really know that because they don't do that part of Facebook. And so they recently built this capability out for live video cross-posting. And this requires either the broadcaster to be an admin of both pages and establish a relationship, or just to request the relationship to another admin that can then agree to it. It can work with scheduled content. It can work with content that you're going live immediately with, so you can have like a manual or automated approval.
Yeah.
But it allows you to publish once natively into Facebook to one page, and then get that to appear natively on all the pages that you're cross-posting to.
Yeah.
And so like, this is an amazing feature because it saves you from either having to go to like a cloud service to do that
multi-distribution, yeah.
Or, you know, you have your on-premise appliance that's eating up additional bandwidth because you need to have 5 streams going up.
Yeah, it can be a real challenge, especially if you're a brand that has multiple pages that you want to go to. We see that a lot with a lot of our clients.
Yep.
We're using a cross-posting feature right now, actually. It's on Wowza and LiveX's Facebook page. And one cool thing, feature of the cross-posting is that the view count is actually shared. So you're not splintering your views, which I know can be a big issue for some content creators. All the views get counted the same and like compiled into each video.
Yep.
And then, but what's interesting about that is that the comments are separate. So
I love that part.
Yeah.
I love it because you have, as a media brand, you might own 5 pages, and the reason you do is you have different audiences on those pages.
Absolutely.
And so this way, you know, you can make those 5 micro communities. You can even tag the posts differently on them, and then they can all interact with each other appropriately. But you still get the high view count. So it looks like there's still a lot of people watching the stream, and there are.
Right.
But you have that kind of micro community, which is cool. That's what Facebook's about, is trying to create that. So it's cool to be able to facilitate that with comments too.
Yeah, and it's easier if you need to separate your audience. We were kind of talking a little bit before this about, you know, different scenarios for why you may want to separate comments and reactions, but keep the same view count, and cross-posting makes that possible. Like, you know, you brought up a sporting event, for instance.
I haven't seen it yet, but I want to desperately. So cross-posting just launched. But I really want to see like a basketball game with like Team A and Team B, and you cross-post it this way. You don't have like the annoying fans in Team A, you know, trash talking the Team B people.
Absolutely.
You just stay with your people, and you're cheering on together, and you're mourning together if you lost, and you don't have that kind of rivalry going on. You just stay on your appropriate page, and everyone can be together.
Yeah, I mean, I think it fits with Facebook's model of trying to foster like quality community engagement, right?
Yeah.
And if you had a live stream of a sport of a game where all the fans from both sides are thrown in, and
it's like a rivalry. You're like, oh, you don't want that.
It is a riot. Like, don't read the comments. It's really, you know, so it is nice to have that separated. You know, another trend that we're seeing a lot more of, and I know it's really popular with a lot of agencies and a lot of media brands because they're seeing really good statistics on engagement and view count, is Square Video. And Square Video, you know, has been around for a little while in VOD, but not taken advantage of quite as much. And, you know, previously there wasn't a lot of ways to do Square Video live because not many devices support encoding Square Video.
Yep.
And, you know, luckily the Clearcaster has now rolled out Square Video and 9x16 or 9x16.
Exactly. And, you know, I first have to say this, you know, being in the video space for a long time, Wowza being, you know, a major player in it, going into these different aspect ratios, it's, you know, there's some reaction to it of like, wait, you have to do 69.
Right.
But social is a different beast. And the way people engage and they're holding their phones vertically, these other formats are really interesting. So you have a Square Video, and you know, it's a pretty good landscape for video, but also enabling someone to do comments and read the comments, holding it vertically. So it's an interesting format. And Facebook has told us this is a very engaging format. It actually performs better from an engagement standpoint in the timeline. And so knowing
I've heard that as well.
Okay, well, what is the right type of content for that? Usually it's something that's trying to be interactive, something Q&A. It's not a professional soccer game because that would look better, in a landscape kind of 16:9, but a Q&A definitely works well. And Wowza's implemented it in a way where you can use your existing production equipment, so cameras, SDI off your switch into the Clearcaster, and you can't send Square through SDI.
Right.
And so your Clearcaster will crop that video and actually send you back a feedback playout that you could put into your switch to understand where the video is. Send that feedback to your talent so they know where the safety bars are of how it's being cropped. So
you'll see it in the talent view.
Exactly.
Right?
So you can have a really production shoot with your pro equipment while publishing in Square.
Yeah. I mean, I wish we had that when we did the LG V20 phone launch in San Francisco, and the agency wanted us to do it live Square.
Yep.
And it was a real challenge to find the right solution that could encode and send out Square video.
Use like wireless, or like an NDI or something to do it, but now you can stick with your kind of more,
robust baseband video.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's some interesting companies doing a lot of Square. Super Deluxe is one of them out of LA. They do daily shows on the Facebook, and you get some really interesting ideas by watching a creative firm like that and how they're using the different video formats and engaging uniquely onto a Facebook Live platform.
Yeah, and there's also vertical video, which we don't see a lot of, but actually it kind of makes more sense in the way people like to hold their phones. There's just I know that Square Video does perform better than vertical, but vertical may perform just as well or better than horizontal video.
Exactly.
And
did you ever see that cartoon of like the vertical video syndrome?
Yes.
Oh man, I always think about that, and you're like, oh, I guess we're gonna do this, but it does. Yeah. It's an engaging format for the phone,
And it's actually easier from a production standpoint in the sense that you can turn your cameras on the side, right? Rather than worrying about crops and hands going out and graphics going out and stuff like that, you can really create dynamically for vertical. Before, like anytime we would do a project like that, it would always be for display, some sort of different display that you would have to produce video for specifically, but it was such a narrow use case. But vertical and Square for social makes a lot more sense because nobody wants to turn their phone to the side. And you can get really creative on the graphics side as well with vertical.
Definitely, you have different space that you can play with.
Yeah, and it just right off the bat, like you have a very different idea of like how to create content for it because it has a new opportunity for it. So that's really great. Let's move on to audience restrictions. So Facebook released audience restrictions recently. They've They break it down into different categories, and there may be certain types of content that are suited better for one audience or the other.
Yep.
And talk to me about like why you think Facebook developed these tools for broadcasters.
Yeah. So historically, Facebook allowed you to apply restrictions at a page level.
Right.
And now these new capabilities allow you to restrict at a post level. So you can have an audience restriction for a specific piece of live video, a specific content post. And it allows you to restrict by age, gender, or geography. And I think geography is the most interesting one for most event producers. You think geo-blocking instantly, and they did it in a fairly easy way to allow you to choose where you want to restrict to or where you want to only enable to. And the big use cases here, I think, are for international broadcasters that might have rights.
Right, rights management issues.
Yeah, exactly. So you might have sold, I was talking to someone who does a lot of rugby, international rugby, and they sell that content to various countries. But in countries they haven't sold it to, they actually like to use Facebook Live to help build awareness and branding. And so they can use that audience restrictions to publish only to where they're allowed to publish to. And this way they can continue to sell it to the broadcasters in the various countries they're selling the content to, while also building that audience in other countries on Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, you can use it in a variety of ways also because you can stream live to groups, right? And you can get into a little more minutia of like who's allowed to watch your content. And geo-blocking has been very important for white label platforms for a long time, and
Yep.
it's really good to see Facebook Live taking professional level tools that we've seen in a lot of white label platforms that can be password protected and things like that, to where now you can stream to specific people and you can have like you can target not targeting, but you can actually just send your stream to specific users and be able to more globally restrict the audience of something simple like 18 and up.
It really opens up the various use cases to the platform. People that couldn't publish onto Facebook because there was no restrictions now can with these new audience restriction features.
Yeah, yeah. And also, a lot of people, I'm going to throw this one in here. We didn't talk about including this, but a lot of people don't realize that the Clearcaster now does captioning, and that's another feature that Facebook didn't always have for live captioning, but now they rolled it out a little later in the process. It wasn't immediately available.
Yeah, it was later last year, but it was later in the process, and that's a big deal for there's certainly regulation coming down on what you need to caption.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the FCC says anything that appears on air and also online needs to include captioning.
And then I've also seen just the general thought that a lot of people, when they're in the Facebook timeline, the audio is muted and the captions can appear, and so that's one way to even draw in your audience to. You already have the captions created. Definitely send those to Facebook. Yeah,
yeah. There's a lot of viewers that watch everything with closed captions turned on, even if they can hear sound. And so, yeah, that's another good feature. But that's, we've taken a little bit of time here to talk about the features of Facebook Live and how you can monetize them. What other tools are broadcasters that you're talking to that are using Facebook? How, the last question I kind of want to end on is if you're a broadcaster and you're trying to figure out if Facebook Live makes sense for your content, what would you have to say to them?
If Facebook Live makes sense, I think Facebook...
From a monetization standpoint, from an ROI, because it costs money to do this.
It does. It costs money to do an event and to do a production. I think there's such reach with Facebook that there's ways to fit it into a strategy that makes sense for you. Mm-hmm. So maybe there is direct monetization strategies with native advertising or some of the branded content tagging features that we talked about. Maybe there's indirect ways by doing things like audience restrictions to build audiences in places where you currently aren't able to monetize.
Sure.
So that branding and awareness. And then lastly, I've seen the use case where you're using Facebook to pull people to your website.
Right.
So a good example of this was, a basketball game that I was watching. They were doing the pregame of the basketball game, and then, they were showing various players warm up, asking the audience to comment about it, and putting those as lower thirds. It was very interactive and fun, but then they showed the tip, and then they threw a slate up saying, watch the rest over here. And that's another example of really leveraging Facebook in different ways to fit your overall monetization strategy. If you're trying to monetize on Facebook or on your website, so, or just building an awareness so that you could later monetize that community. So there's a way to have a good strategy to really use this to mutually benefit your brand.
Good stuff, man. Anthony, thanks for joining me.
Awesome.
Yeah, really appreciate it. This has been another Wowza Studio session live from NAB, and we'll be right back at the top of the next hour. And stick around.